All right, let's dive into a classic story of survival. But this is so much more than just staying alive. It's about a family stranded with basically nothing, who uses some serious ingenuity to turn a total disaster into an incredible opportunity. Let's see how they pulled it off. So our story really kicks off with an unexpected visitor. The family's donkey comes back one evening, but he's not alone. He's brought a wild mare with him. An animal so powerful it's going to test their limits, but also, believe it or not, become a key to their survival.
So right off the bat, the family has a brand new problem on their hands. And this is not some docile farm animal, okay? This is a fierce, wild onager. Their very first task is to figure out, how do you tame something that seems totally untamable?
Now you might be wondering, what exactly is an onager? Well, think of a wild donkey, but on a whole other level. They're known for being incredibly strong, super fast, and notoriously difficult to tame. So that's the challenge they're staring down. And Defiant is putting it mildly. The second she figured out she was tied up, she got furious. We're talking fiery glances, lashing out with her hooves, the whole deal. She fought all night long, but it was no use. The ropes held, but her wild spirit, that was far from broken.
And this question from the father, it just perfectly captures the problem, doesn't it? It wasn't about brute force. It was about winning over this proud, wild spirit. How do you earn its trust without completely breaking its will?
Okay, this is where their ingenuity just goes off the charts. The father remembers this old trick he'd read about, one used by American Indians. It's a shockingly simple two-step move. First, he jumps on her back. Then, he bites down firmly on her ear. And you know what? It worked. The onager instantly stood still. Just like that, her defiance was gone. She was tamed. So, with their new companion on board, the family has to face their next huge challenge. You can see the dark skies gathering. The rainy season is coming. And their open-air treehouse? No way is that going to protect them or their animals from a long, wet winter. They needed a fortress.
Their creativity here is just incredible. They use the giant roots of their tree as a natural foundation, weaving a frame out of bamboo. Then they packed the walls with clay and moss and sealed the whole thing with a mix of tar and lime to make it waterproof. The result? A super sturdy shelter with separate spots for the family and for their animals. Pretty smart.
But building the shelter was only half the battle. With thunder literally rolling in the distance, the family worked with this desperate kind of urgency. They were harvesting and storing everything they possibly could, day in and day out, because they knew they were in a flat-out race against the storms.
The winter was exactly what you'd expect. Long, boring, and gloomy, stuck inside their cramped little shelter. But when that gloom finally lifted, spring arrived with a massive surprise. One part total disaster, and one part unbelievable revelation.
You can just feel the relief in this quote, can't you? I mean, after weeks and weeks of being cooped up by nonstop rain, spring felt like being broken out of jail. The sun was out, the world was green again, and they could finally get out of their winter hideout. But that amazing feeling, well, it didn't last long. They went to check on their other shelter, the tent house, and found it completely destroyed. The winter storms had just shredded the canvas into rags and soaked everything they had stored there. It was a huge setback. So, trying to salvage the situation, Fritz gets the idea to hollow out a cave in a rock face nearby. But after 10 days of backbreaking work, they've barely made a dent. And then, this happens. A tool just punches right through the wall. It wasn't solid rock, after all. So there was just this thin wall between them, and what? A tiny chamber? A den with a dangerous animal inside? At this point, they had absolutely no idea what they had just stumbled onto. What they found on the other side of that wall was a massive cavern. And this discovery would lead them to build their most ambitious home yet, a fortress inside the rock that they would call the Rock House. And let's be clear, we're not talking about some little grotto here. A cavern is a large cave. This was a vast underground space hidden right where they were chipping away. An entire new world had just opened up for them. But they hit a snag right away. The air inside was stale, totally unbreathable. Their solution, though, was brilliantly simple. They lit a bunch of hay on fire and just threw it inside. The fire ate up all the bad air, and once it burned out, the cavern was safe to enter. And what they saw inside was just breathtaking. The walls weren't rock. They were made of glittering crystal that sparkled in their candlelight. The father tasted a piece and had this stunning realization. It was a cavern of pure rock salt. They had just found an unlimited supply of one of the most essential minerals on Earth.
So they immediately got to work turning this natural wonder into a home. They were so logical about it, dividing the huge space into 4 clear areas: a place for sleeping and eating, a kitchen and workshop, stables for the animals, and a massive storehouse for all their supplies.
With their home now totally secure, the family's life really shifts. They've moved beyond just surviving and are now truly thriving. And another chance discovery of a simple plant would bring them a whole new level of comfort.
One afternoon, they stumbled on a grove of bushes that looked like they were covered in snowflakes. But when they got closer, they saw it wasn't snow at all. It was soft, white puffs of cotton, just growing wild.
And this right here is a perfect example of how they were always thinking ahead. They didn't just take what was there. The mother immediately took cuttings to plant in her own garden, making sure they'd have a supply in the future. And then she put the cotton to use right away, making new, comfortable clothes for the whole family.
And this final quote, it just says it all. The rock house wasn't just a shelter. It was a comfortable, organized, and safe home. They went from a ruined tent to a glittering palace made of salt, all through their own creativity and hard work.
And that leaves us with a pretty cool question to think about. The family's greatest discovery was literally hidden behind what looked like a dead end, a solid wall of rock. It really makes you wonder about the challenges in our own lives. What hidden opportunity might be waiting just behind your wall?